shipped to this port cheaper than we can get it from coal fields in Virginia. And this is a world struggle. And if we don't have trained people, we're not going to make it. And that's our obligation to do it. Now, I'm a little evangelist. How do you like my Baptist approach here? I'm getting a little, this is what we've got to do. But how do we get the business community to recognize and wake up to the fact, and Mary is correct, the people on the Board of Education reluctantly are more driven to academics. But when you say you have to have academics and vocational, we don't have anyone on the Board of Education, never have, as far as I know, that really has an interest in vocational. The whole lifeblood of this Commonwealth. And we have to do that. I mean, I apologize for being evangelistic, but I can preach it on Thursday and on Saturday, Sunday, and
Hampton Roads area, but we also have people from Roanoke, Richmond, Northern Virginia that are part of this network also. One thing that would be helpful to us to know is in terms of the legislative process and what is going to happen legislatively with the standards of quality. In terms of how can we, one, understand the process, and two, what can we do to have our opportunity to have an impact on that process?
Well, let me say this. The Constitution in Virginia had discussions with Dr. Spagno, and apparently they do not contemplate many changes. But when they submit the changes to us, then we would have the right to amend it, put the "and" in there, or make any changes of that nature. The standards of quality today are supposed to coordinate with the budget items, and it should. For years we floundered around, and we didn't know whether how do you write money to standards. Well, they have evolved a program to do that. And but did you see anything in the Board of Education program to boost vocational education?
No.
Of the $1 billion that they want? I didn't see anything. Mary, did you? Harvey, did you? Now that just shows you the challenge we have.
Board members, including myself. If we could go back as advisory committee members and sit down with our local school boards and take a look at the delegate assembly handbook, which you delegate from the school boards to delegate often had in the hand. You may want to look at that legislative action program and see, and my guess is there's not much in there at this point because sometimes school boards react to the SOQ standards after they have come out and not before. If we could take a look at that, we as a group of people say, please, let's go back and read that. In light of your remarks today, we may be able to get our association, Virginia School Boards Association, Superintendents Association, our former boss is standing right here, to begin to then underline some of the things we all agree upon, as Senator Andrews and Delegate Morgan and each person has said here today. You have to go ahead and do that. And when I first went to Senator Andrews, that's the first thing he told me. He said, you can't be alone, Ralph. You can't be alone. And there's certainly enough people today to do that. So that's one place we can start, and that's within the next 30 days, right off the bat.
On the interim superintendent of York County Schools, I'm not a professional educator. I'm a nuclear engineer and lawyer by education and training. My observations are based on this past year. And as Senator Ramos pointed out, this is the choir. You're preaching to each other. Nothing's going to happen unless you start doing things like Ralph talked about. We talked about one side of the equation, business and industry. The other side of the equation is the cultural environment of the education establishment. My observation is that educators, as a group, look down their nose at vocational education. And until you effect a shift in that perspective, you're going to have unsuccessful fight and efforts like our academic tech effort here. If we isolated struggles, they're going to achieve no lasting or reaching effect. So there's two sides of the equation. There's industry, business, and the education establishment. And it's going to be a tough job.
But the General Assembly can make a difference too, and that image is one of the things we believe.
So we need to continue to push it and continue to look for other avenues. And I think, while your note is one that's maybe a little pessimistic, it also underlines what we're up against, what we're trying to do. Other comments or suggestions or discussions?
I'm with the York County Vocational Advisory Committee. And, you know, I'm a big believer in communications, and through this whole process, I hear comments. We do talk to each other a lot, and I think we should make sure that all these thoughts and the requirements for more education and better education are passed down through the guidance counselors and to the parents and to the students at an early age. I can think back to when I got out of high school, and I had no idea what I needed to get a job. And I see that doesn't seem to have changed a whole lot today. The guidance counselors don't always prepare the kids and let them know what they need to get jobs. And I think that needs to be done. The students need to realize this at age 12, age 13, or even before that. And whatever it takes to communicate with them and let the parents and students know, I think is important. Even business can get involved. I know we do with their company. We're trying to make sure the guidance counselors that we deal with have up-to-date information on what it takes to get into our program so they can share it with the students. And if the major companies in Virginia did that, and the schools maintained a database with that information, it may be very helpful to the parents and students. That's my thoughts.
I wonder if we recognize that if we take these steps, that we're going to gore somebody's ox. I
Some coffee up there, but
With the white belts.
Let me thank each of you for staying over. I know you've been here for quite some time this morning, since 8 o'clock, and I appreciate you staying so that we can share with you the information on the Academic Tech program. This is a program that has been responded to a request for proposal from the State Department of Community Colleges in their RFP for Carl Perkins funding. The funding source is the Carl D. Perkins Vocational Applied Technology Act, Title III, Part E, and is administered by the community college system. This consortium received one of two fundings for the state of Virginia. Our academic tech program is a 3-year grant. It's $150,000 for each of the 3 years, for a total of $450,000. And let me start with something that I believe we have more or less put as our basic thoughts in this whole effort. This is the basic question that we ask ourselves. That is, if we continue to do what we have always done, we're going to get more of the same. And then the question following that would be, is this what we really want? And of course, the response from all of us has been, no, that's not what we really want. And we know, due to all of the research, America's Choice, Workforce 2000, and a lot of others, that that's not what we want. And we know if we continue to do the same, then we're going to get more of the same. It's just like having a youngster fail a math course and saying to the youngster that you're going to have to go back and repeat it. And you put them back into the class, and you do the same thing that you did the first time through, and they still come out a failure, and you ask yourself why. To do this, we have developed a goal, or what we might call a vision, and that is that we're going to develop and implement an academic tech 6-year, grade 9 through 14, seamless curriculum, which integrates and enhances the academic achievement and vocational competency of completers such that they are prepared for careers and further education in the 21st century. There are some key words here that I'd like to point out to you, and that is, it will be a seamless curriculum. It's going to integrate and enhance the academic and vocational competencies of all of our completers. It is also going to prepare these youngsters for careers and further education. And you heard earlier today the important stress on the "and" part of that, and we firmly believe in that. To do this, we're going to make use of, need a larger screen. To accomplish this, we're going to join in a partnership with programs, successful programs, I might add, that are already in place through the partnership of the Chamber of Commerce Big Ed Council, all the Peninsula School Divisions at Thomas Nelson. And also NESA is included in this partnership through a grant funding for the Adams Program, the Regional Summer Institute, and the Attack 2000 components. The Adams Program is designed to motivate and excite 7th and 8th grade students about math, science, and technology. In the 7th grade, you have industry people going directly into the classroom with a hands-on type show and tell program with those 7th grade students. And then in the 8th grade, these students will go out and visit industry. And I believe last year, approximately 2,400 7th grade students were serviced through that program, and that will increase this coming year in numbers. And then in the 8th grade, well, actually rising 9th graders, the summer between the 8th and 9th grade, there's a Math Sciences Summer Institute at the college designed to further motivate these students about math, science, and technology. In conjunction with that, through the Big Ed Council at the Chamber of Commerce, you have the Attack 2000 of mentorship programs, internships, co-ops, free apprentices, and also teacher and counselor internships. These programs are beginning to take shape in most of these areas, and this past year we had a very successful pilot program for the teachers in the high schools. 12 teachers in the pilot program worked in local industry in paid internship positions. All of this effort is designed to get the students excited about the math, the sciences, what the real world is all about, what the future is going to require of them, all the different types of careers that are available, and also get the teachers in that same mode so that they are ready to teach relevant information to the students in the classroom in all subjects, math, science, communications, as well as the occupational areas. So by having these components in place, what we were missing was what you see in the middle, the academic tech, a core curriculum for world-class education. Currently, we have vocational education programs, we have the 4-year college prep program, and we have the general diploma track. In this academic tech core curriculum, we're proposing to make a lot of changes there, a lot of restructuring efforts. And I think you also heard earlier today that everything cannot just all of a sudden start at the 9th grade. So all the school districts in this area are working on restructuring K-8 also. So it won't be just a new start. Although all of this cannot take place overnight either. To accomplish this objective, we have an organizational structure, and this is a massive effort, and I think you can see by what we have put together here as an organizational structure. We're involving everyone from the educational community at the secondary level, the community college, and industry. And we're also inviting the 4-year university people to work with us so that when the youngsters finish this program, there will not be any questions by the 4-year universities as to the value of what we're calling the applied academics. The applied academics aspect of this, the student flow chart, how they will move through the program, will be explained in a few minutes by Neil Brooks. But what we're trying to do here is to make sure that we have total involvement from day one. We need everyone involved from all segments of the community, the parents, the teachers, the counselors, the administrators, and the industry groups. What we're really proposing here is to provide only 2 options for students. They will either, when they come into high school, they'll have the option of pursuing what we're calling the academic tech program or the 4-year university track. No other options. And as Neil will explain to you, we will do this in such a fashion that the academic integrity of the applied academics will be maintained. When you get down past the project director, you see there are 4 curriculum writing teams. Actually, those are clusters of writing teams. In the 4 left, we have a curriculum writing team for applied academics. Well, that will be 3 different writing teams of math, science, and communications. They will have, as consultants to them, consultants coming from 2 different groups, the education community and also business and industry and government. We want to make sure that those components are relevant to the real world. And then in the technology, trade, and industrial area, I'm not sure how many different writing teams will be in that area. But all of your basic trade areas and your technology areas will come under that particular cluster, such as carpentry, plumbing, electricity, our electronics, all those types of programs. And they in turn will have education consultants and business and industry consultants from the industries working with them. The same thing will apply to business and marketing cluster. A lot of different teams under there. And then what we're calling human services. In the human services area, all programs that deal with services, allied health, cosmetology, a lot of others will be under that category. Now, there are a couple of other important components back here. One that we are currently in the process of organizing is in the upper right-hand corner of the Collaboration Council. That's where we will be asking industry to place their individuals at the management decision level on that Collaboration Council, along with some additional education specialists and representatives of the area PTA groups, parent organizations. They will be advising the executive committee, which will have the overall responsibility for the project. And you notice the Big Ed Council will be working directly with the project director and associate director, and have as one of its responsibilities assisting us with public relations, such as they have helped us organize here this morning. So I think what you're going to see with this massive effort and total involvement, everyone will have ownership from day one. It'll be all of our project. It won't be my project or Neil's or Thomas Nelson's. It is a partnership effort of all of us striving toward a lot of what you heard about earlier this morning. We have 3 years to develop this project. We hope that at the end of the second year, we will be prepared to implement the applied academics at the secondary level. And then at the end of the third year, everything will be in place to implement the vocational program. Now, the vocational courses are occupational courses already in place. But there will be a significant change in those programs in at least one sense, and that is the integration of the applied academics into each of those vocational courses. Okay. Also, as we go through with the writing teams, you and industry, along with the educators, will be re-examining those courses to make sure that they are still relevant. So they will also be upgraded. Now, all this effort is not just secondary. If you notice, everything that I've talked about so far impacts secondary. But that's where it's got to start. But the result is going to have a ripple effect in the associate and applied science degrees at Thomas Nelson Community College. And our diploma programs will undergo a significant change as a result of this. We will not have to start with the low basics in a lot of areas that we have to start with now. Youngsters will be at a much higher level. Therefore, we will be able to raise the level of our programs at the college in demands to meet your demands. Okay. A lot of you are serving on advisory committees. And most of you, when you come to an advisory committee meeting and you look at the program areas, you tell us, educators, that what you want to see is these things added. You always want to add something. And we say, okay, that's fine, we agree with you. What do you suggest we take out? Well, you don't want anything taken out. So what we have to do is by working together, the secondary program, upgrading that one, then everybody can add more, higher level competencies. I'd like at this time to call on Niels, and he will talk about the applied academic portion of this and how it fits into the overall program, its importance, and how it's going to work with the four-year university parallel courses.
What I'd like to do is just take a few minutes to talk to you about the curriculum design and the program that we envision. If you transparency in front of you on the left, you see that we're talking about a program that's going to carry a student grade 9 through 14, which would be 2 years of community college, also involving apprenticeship opportunities. There's 3 basic components of the curriculum makeup that we're looking for: the applied academic core, the technical specialties or our vocational cluster areas, and then the section in the middle of the social sciences, health, physical education, the other requirements that our State Department of Education and the Commonwealth of Virginia says that the student has to have to receive a high school diploma. The difference about this program is if you look at the technical specialty areas, we have grouped that into cluster areas. We have a business and marketing cluster, we have a human service cluster, and we have a trade, technology, and industry cluster. The reason that the vocational courses are grouped in these clusters is because it's easy to identify the academics that are required to help prepare the student in those clusters for further education. For example, in business and marketing, the math, the science, the communication skills that are needed for those students to prepare for further training are very similar. They're unique to those areas. Probability and statistics is a mathematical course that is very appropriate for this area. If you look at your human service careers, that's going to encompass an area that we're looking at on the peninsula that would bring in all of the home economics occupation areas that we have on the peninsula. It would also bring in such things as cosmetology, our food service programs, and our health programs. Again, looking at those areas, you can identify math and science requirements that are very generic or specific for those areas to prepare students for advanced training at the community college. And then thirdly, the trade, technological, and industry areas are the same way. You're not going to have necessarily the same applied academics across all 3 at the higher performance level. We do feel like that particularly at the 9th and 10th grade level, there may be similarities. For example, all students at the 9th and 10th grade level may get something of the equivalent of Applied Math 1. Now, Applied Math is a course that we have been piloting in York County for 3 years now. We purchased the material from CORD, which is the Center for Occupational Research and Development of Waco, Texas. And Applied Math 1 has the same academic integrity of Algebra 1, plus it has more. Applied Math 1 has every standard of learning that Virginia identifies for Algebra 1 with the exception of radicals. But in addition to that, the student also is exposed to about half of what Virginia identifies in informal geometry, plus it exposes the student to some trigonometry, some probability, and statistics. So it's a different kind of math. In addition to having those components that we understand when we say Algebra 1 and geometry, it also is applied to the working world, not necessarily what we usually term as the real world, because there's 2 different meanings. You know, real world can mean something like Mrs. Brown has 15 chickens and the yard's 10 by 12, how much fence does it take? Working world is different. Working world is what it's going to take for the child to succeed and be able to continue lifelong learning on the job. And your applied academic courses that are out there that we're going to explore and develop will relate directly to the working world so that the student that is in a vocational specialty area will also receive the academic integrity that they need to continue their learning, but it will be associated to what they're learning, just like it is on the job right now. And they won't be segregated out into individual courses, as we know, because if you talk to business and industry, they'll tell you, well, you need to know Algebra 1, but when you're working on your job during the course of the day, you don't say, okay, now I'm going to do my job and I'm going to use Algebra 1, and an hour from now I'm going to do my job and I'm going to use trigonometry. You use a conglomerate of those academics all at an approach in doing your job. So that's kind of what the approach of the applied academic core is going to look like. In the areas of science, we're looking at a lot of physics in those areas, or applied physics for those areas. A point that was made earlier today in an earlier meeting was that of all the industrialized nations in the world right now, most nations require 3 to 6 years of physics by the time a child gets to what we look at our middle school grade level. Yet we normally hold physics off to the 11th or 12th grade. So we're going to be looking at some different things there on how to apply or provide the appropriate academics at the appropriate time to go along with the vocational skill training. Another thing that we're going to be looking at is the applied English curriculum. And this is basically heavily on communications, and we'll also be looking at technical reading and technical writing. A good example that has been used in our state a number of times is that, to look at a VCR manual. Now, you may think that the VCR manual is very difficult to read, but it's written technically. However, if your VCR becomes unprogrammed, who do we turn to reprogram it? Usually our kids. They can look at it, they can read it, and they can reprogram our VCR very quickly. But traditional English and the things that we've taught them there kind of breaks down the understanding of technical English, which they have developed naturally at an early age, and go more into our traditional English. So what we hope to do is recultivate that, because business and industry and the work that you see out there in business industry is written in a technical manner, and you have to be able to understand technical writing and reading in order to be able to compete in the business and industry. So these are the type of things we're talking about. I will say that York County is going to be serving as a pilot, and let me reemphasize that, as a pilot. We have had the opportunity for 3 years to work in conjunction with the Southern Region Education Board and the Department of Education on a project to integrate academic and vocational education. So we have a slight head start, not much, but a slight head start. I prefer to say that we're going to continue to be the guinea pigs for a few more years. But what we hope to do is the things that we have learned, the mistakes that we have made, that we'll be able to communicate that regionally so that we can actually further develop this program and refine it and get where we want to begin in 3 years. It's going to be very difficult if we were starting from zero to jumpstart and get where we need to be in 3 years. So we'll use some of the things that we've learned and to help the peninsula to make it a regional program for regional cooperation. It'll be very difficult for us to tell you all the specifics of what's going to be, because that's going to be in the committee work to begin to decide that, and once business and industry has their input. I do have a brochure that I would like to give you, because it probably doesn't make a lot of sense, but this is something that we decided to put out in York this year, and basically it was because as you talk, people begin to develop an understanding that if they see what you're saying in print, it's even better. And this basically shows the cluster areas that we're piloting this year. Now, the program we're talking about, Academic Tech for the regional program, is going to far surpass what we've begun to start here in York County. This is just our first year pilot effort. But it would show you the 3 cluster areas, vocational options, it shows you academic options and academic requirements. I do want to insist that this program that we're piloting this year, and the program that we're going to be putting in place on the peninsula, is going to prepare a youngster to leave high school with 23 credits in our current system. Now, that's 1 credit shy of full classes for 4 years. In addition, the only requirements for college that won't be met by this would be foreign language, with one exception. That is, Cecil mentioned earlier, as the community colleges and 4-year universities begin to accept the applied academics as the equal of the traditional. One thing we've already begun to find out, it really doesn't matter if it's called Algebra 1 or Applied Math 1. If the academic integrity is there, and if a student can test out if they have the competence, the universities really don't mind much. Good example, New York State has not had Algebra 1 or Geometry or Algebra 2 for a number of years now. The universities, the UVA and Virginia Tech and our other universities in Virginia and other places accept those math credits because a child can show competence in those areas. The universities aren't really worried that much, but that's new territory that we're going to be having to break ground in. And the first step is that Thomas Nelson will be recognizing those through this project. And once the community college begin to recognize those, then others are. We already have interest expressed from a number of universities in our area, both on this side and on the south side, that are very interested in what we're doing and want to work very closely and be associated with the project to not only look at a continuance through 2 years, but possibly 4 years. Our goal is to prepare those students who are non-baccalaureate bound. Now, I'm not saying college bound, because this program will prepare students to continue their college at Thomas Nelson or other community colleges or apprenticeship programs or technical schools. But non-baccalaureate bound students will be prepared to go and continue their education through at least 2 additional years, and they'll also be prepared for work. Both of them, not either, but both of them. They'll be able to continue lifelong learning, they'll be able to go into the workforce and become competitive, and they should be able to stay at the top of their skills. An analogy that I've always used, I think is important. Doctors and lawyers are 2 professions we always respect very much. They're 2 professions that the persons are taught the basic knowledge of a skill, they're taught a basic knowledge of academics that are related to the skill. And they're also taught how to continue to research and stay at the top of their fields. A doctor could not have been trained 30 years ago and be very productive in today's society with the developments in medicine if they had not been taught how to do that. So the intent of our program is to do the same thing for all occupational areas so that students can stay at the top of their field, stay up with technology, continue the lifelong learning. At this time, I'd like to recognize the co-chairs of our executive committee, Dr. Harvey Perkins and Dr. Billy Kennedy, for their comments.
Thank you, Niels. One of the things that I guess encouraged Billy and I to get involved in saying that we would co-chair this is one, that we do believe it's a worthy effort. If we didn't believe that it was good for kids, we wouldn't have gotten involved with it. But I think the second thing is because in our business of being assistant superintendents working with instruction, we realize that this is a twofold product effort that we have going here. We really feel like that one of the things that's going to come out of this is going to be a product. Clearly, it's going to be curriculum, and that's what a large part of this is curriculum writing. The other reason we got involved with it is we also realized that the bigger part, probably, of this whole process is a cultural change. It's a process. If we develop the product, which is the curriculum, without the concomitant cultural change, to change the paradigms, the mindsets of the people that are supposed to be working with this and deliver it, we have done nothing. And I think probably our bigger challenge in education, this was spoken to earlier today, is to look at our educational program itself. Look at the mindsets and the values that we bring to it. Let's look at our attitudes we bring to the concept of what is vocational education, what is an academic, technical preparation. And if we don't begin to deal with those kind of issues in the minds of the educators delivering the content, then this is not going to be a very significant effort. We will develop a big book of curriculum with people who don't have their heart in delivering the curriculum. And that's not going to get us anywhere. So I think that we are committed to the fact that as representatives of school divisions and representatives of the colleagues in secondary education out there, that we see a mission ahead of us that's pretty challenging. And we have to be working with the process at the same time the product is being developed. And those have to work simultaneously. The academic tech executive committee is made up of the division chairs and the dean of instruction at Thomas Nelson Community College. It's made up of the assistant superintendents for instruction from the 5 participating school divisions and the directors of vocational education from those 5 school divisions. It's also made up of the New Horizons Technical Center staff, superintendent in charge and the guidance director representative is from York County, Dr. Kaplan, and a Big Ed representative is also on there. And one of the things that we added, which we thought was critical at the last meeting, was we actually added content area supervisors from the school divisions. Because again, if you don't have your math, science, communications people buying into the concept, and again, going back and communicating that to the people in the field who are supposed to be the targets or recipients of this, at the end of it, we're not going to have what we want. And I think that Billy is going to speak just briefly as to the challenge that that process and the paradigm shift that we're looking for in the culture of education is all about. And that's probably the biggest piece.
Good morning. We really do have a challenge ahead of us to make certain that we don't fall back and fall prey to what we've done in the past, and that is to more of the same. The same has been probably our biggest impediment to wanting to change. We've been successful with sameness for some of our kids. So it makes it very difficult to suggest that something different will make it better. But we realize that things aren't different, so they won't allow us to continue doing the same things. For all of our kids to be successful, we have to look at fundamentally changing the structure of how we teach and also the structure of our schools. When Harvey and I talked about this co-chairmanship, we really are not speaking as members of 2 school divisions. We're speaking as 2 people that are educators representing a lot of other educators who do the right thing for the children. For change to take place, it has to be personal. And for it to be personal, you have to first of all realize that there is a problem. It's not people. The real problem is that we have an institution that has tended to reinforce certain behaviors. Those behaviors are the same behaviors that existed some 100 years ago when our high schools were first founded, and we pretty much replicate that over time. All we've done is simply added more bricks called credits. We really haven't substantively changed what we've done for our young people. We see our opportunity really as looking at trying to create a new framework for people to look at how we educate all of our kids. We don't have throwaway kids. Dr. Timberland has talked about that. All of our kids have to be successful if we're going to maintain our standard of living. But more importantly, that our young people can meet their parents' standard of living and hopefully exceed it. That's a major threat for all of our kids now. So what we see is several of our missions this year. One is to create a major awareness that is there a need to change with the people that have the greatest impact on kids, teachers. Harvey talked about this whole thing of targeting people. Whenever we target teachers and say, you will implement something, our history tells us it never works. We want them to help develop, not because they've been given a charge to develop something new, but because there's a need that they identify that says what we have doesn't work for all of our children. They're not the fault, but they can be the initiators of change. The other part is we want to make sure that we reinforce people taking risks. Our business is not a risk-taking business. It's a security business. So when we try things new, we have to let people know that if you're doing it in the name of children and it's tied to a future that's vital for them, that's okay. And failure promotes success. Success, as we've known in the past, will only promote more failure. So Harvey and I are representing lots of people. We're going to give ourselves the freedom to try to do it a different way and to reinforce people to take risks, because all of our kids are important, not just some of them. Thank you.
At this time, we'd like to recognize individual consortium members for their comments. And first, I'd like to present Dr. Robert Jenkins, who is president of Thomas Nelson Community College.
Much has been written and debated about our crisis in education in the workforce today. We know that study after study has indicated that real wages in America have been dropping since 1969. We know that our workforce has been losing its competitive edge when benchmarked against international competition. We know that American students anchor the bottom of international competitors in the fields of math and science. We know in study after study that in Virginia, 1 out of every 4 ninth graders never completes the 12th grade. We know that the majority of Virginia students graduating from our public schools today are neither prepared to enter the workforce as a skilled employee, nor competent to continue one's education beyond high school. I think what's significant is that while other parts of the country and the state debate the problem and issue more reports, the Virginia Peninsula has taken and is taking today action. Remember the Nike commercial? Just do it. While the other parts of the Commonwealth and our nation are debating over the crisis in education and the workforce today, we're doing it. We're doing something about it. By now leading the Commonwealth of Virginia, by forming partnerships for excellence in education. It's not new. In 1987, and even before that, but in 87, the Big Ed Council became a part of the mission of the Virginia Peninsula Chamber of Commerce, bringing all the school divisions, business and industry, together for partnerships for excellence. In 1988, Thomas Nelson Community College brought together an industry task force made up of our leading high-tech employers like Canon, NASA, CBAF, Siemens, Newport News Shipbuilding. We took a look at what the workforce requirements in the future were and said, we are not prepared to face that challenge with the way that we're going about it now, and started additional partnerships for excellence. These two efforts now, joining together, include every school division in the Virginia Peninsula, and affect nearly every grade level, beginning in elementary school through post-secondary training. These efforts have resulted in hundreds of partnerships affecting thousands of children on the Virginia Peninsula to develop partnerships for excellence in education. Today we're announcing another milestone in Virginia education. We're forming Virginia's first comprehensive regional partnership between school divisions, community college, our technical centers, and business and industry and local government to not just talk about and debate what's wrong with education or what's wrong with the workforce, but to literally take concrete action, moving beyond partnerships of schools to restructuring the curriculum of what our children are studying. Benchmark not against standards that might be set in Atlanta, because our students do pretty good when we compete against Atlanta or St. Louis or San Francisco, but benchmark against international standards to develop a core curriculum for a world-class education. What we're talking about today is not just educational reform. What we're talking about is that the Virginia Peninsula is making a choice. A choice for the future, not of low skills, low wages, but a workforce of the future that will be second to none, thereby attracting industry that will be at the cutting edge internationally and bringing with it not only the demand for high skills, but high wages. We're talking about not just educational reform, but a future that affects the entire peninsula as a place to live. A quality of life that will be increasing for our children, for their children, for generations to come. Thomas Nelson Community College is proud and honored to be one of the consortium members taking part in the actual work of the curriculum redevelopment. So, as other regions debate, we have. We are in a crisis in our country. The Chinese have an interesting way of portraying the character of crisis in written expressions made up of two symbols. One stands for danger, the other opportunity. Today, we're pursuing that opportunity for a brighter tomorrow for all of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Temple. This time, I'd like to recognize Ms. Vicki Sprigg, who is chair of the school board of Williamsburg, James City County, and she is representing Dr. Gaden Caruth, who is superintendent. Ms. Sprigg.
I am an enthusiastic supporter of vocational education. I have 3 children, and all 3 of those children graduated from Williamsburg, James City County schools. Of my 2 sons who participated in the Industrial Cooperative Training Program at Lafayette, one of those, as a result, my eldest son, as a result of his on-the-job training, is now a mechanical engineering major at Old Dominion University. I have an awareness that there is a book titled The 7 Traits of Highly Effective People, and one of those traits is identified as beginning with the end in mind. And it sounds to me like the Vocational Advisory Council did just that with the identification of an emphasis on employment and lifelong learning. And I guess today I've heard the challenge that you all have, as we discussed earlier, that we need to build partnerships, some regional cooperation needs to take place, and there needs to be an openness in the educational environment to receive this coming in of the community. So I have taken on that challenge and will try to push that through with my colleagues at the school board in Williamsburg, James City County. I do have a statement today that I'd like to read, and regrets from Gaden Caruth that she could not be with us. But in her words, she says, making learning relevant for workplace skills has long been expressed as a philosophy of school divisions. The academic tech prep grant gives us the opportunity to make this a reality. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. This time, I'd like to recognize Mr. Richard Hickson, interim superintendent of York County Public Schools.
Dr. Templin, fellows, ladies and gentlemen, the York County School Board and the York County School Division is extremely pleased to be a member of the academic tech team. We're very proud of the role that our Director of Vocational Education, Niels Brooks, has played in assisting Mr. Phillips and Dr. Templin in bringing this project together. And I know the realization of academic tech is a source of great satisfaction to Dr. Dick Lewis, our Assistant Superintendent for Instruction, and Dr. Barry Beers, the Principal nurturing this prototype of a different way of teaching kids who want to go on and earn the baccalaureate. We pledge our very best effort to, as Dr. Temple said, just doing it and getting on with this very important business.
Thank you, Mr. Dixon. This time, I recognize Dr. Wayne Ladd, who is interim superintendent for Newport News Public Schools. Thank you. First of all, I'd like to mention that Dr. Perkins, of course, as a representative of the school division and the school board, has already made several comments which reflect our feeling about this program. And I think this program provides us with the opportunity to address some of the concerns that were raised this morning in the first session for those of you who attended that session. We're able to involve public schools, business, and post-secondary in an effort to address these curriculum concerns over the next 3 years. I think it's an excellent program, and we look forward to working with all these parties over the next 3 years. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Webb. This time, I'd like to recognize Dr. Raymond Bernal, Superintendent for Poston Public Schools.
Thank you, Niels. Ladies and gentlemen, a little while ago, Hunter Andrews was referring to his comments as coming on a little bit like a Baptist preacher, and I feel a bit like we're having a revival here. We all stand up and say, amen. We got this thing going, and we're all going to support it 100%. I think that is an appropriate thing. I, like all of you, are very excited about the possibilities of this. I think at the heart of it is expectations. We've all got to have expectations. First of all, that it's going to work. We've got to make that commitment up front. It's not going to be simply as if saying we now have the keys to the kingdom and everybody jump aboard, here we go. We're going to have to do a sales job, and I think that was referenced earlier, that it's change. Anytime you have change, it's going to require a real sales job with our students. It's going to be different for them. With our parents, who are going to say, what are you doing for or to my youngsters? And especially with our own staffs. That's going to be probably one of the toughest nuts of this whole thing. So it's something we're going to have to be very keenly aware of, and I would suggest that may be where our initial focus is going to be, to bring our staffs along with this as a positive change, and not something that's another bandwagon approach or anything like that. The commitment of all of us, the support that we who are educators are going to need from the community at large, and particularly those of you who are involved with the businesses that we are trying to work so closely with on this. And finally, I'd like to close by telling a little story. Dr. mentioned earlier that we're really dealing with a situation that is in fact a crisis. I don't know if any of you heard the report yesterday of the grades that youngsters are receiving and the amount of time that they're studying. They're studying less, and the grades are okay, and they think it's okay, and they're getting lower grades and putting in less time studying. And then another question, one of these cross-research questions, do you expect to have an economic level equal to, less than, or higher than your parents? Guess what they all said? Higher. Going to do less, get more. That's a great idea. So we do have this particular crisis. A little story I wanted to tell you. It seems that an ant was visiting another ant, little ants that crawl around the ground, visiting another ant who happened to live on a golf course. And as the resident ant was showing the other one around, they came to a sand trap, and they got in the sand trap, and all of a sudden they see this big white object, and the ant that was living said, wait a minute, get away from that thing. He said, what is it? He said, ball, get away from it, watch out. And here's the golfer. He takes a mighty swing with a club, and he missed the ball. He hit the sand. Both ants went flying through the air. Came back down to the ground, shook themselves off, brushed themselves off. He said, what happened? He said, oh, it's just a mistake. He missed. Get away from the ball. About that time, the golfer swings again. Same thing happens. Hits the sand. The two ants fly up in the air, fall down, crush themselves off. The ant turns to him and said, hey, you know what? I think we better get on the ball or we're going to get the hell knocked out of it. I think that's the situation here. We need to get on the ball, and I think this project just may be the thing.
Thanks, Dr. Bernal. this time, I'd like to recognize Mr. Raymond Washington, Superintendent of Hampton City Schools.
As a new superintendent, we've been trying to look at the broad-based picture. And we talk about getting youngsters ready for the 21st century. And with the same breath, we said the 21st century is today. This program certainly coincides with what we think our boys and girls will need as they move on toward the 21st century. I come to this situation with a vocational background and a industrial arts background. And I often use the story where when I was teaching electricity, the science teacher would send a youngster down to me to help him work on a science project, and we'd take a nail and some wire and we'd do some things, and then we'd go back and say, what do you have? And he'd say, well, when I put current, and I have a magnetic field and these kinds of things. Then we go back and say, you know, coils of wire and armature and those kinds of things. We're going through the back door to try to teach concepts. I think this approach gives youngsters a different methodology. We look at what we've been doing over the years. It's not working. And we need to give youngsters different choices. And those choices have to be like yesterday. So Hampton is very, very proud to be a part of this. We also have another degree of proudness, and that is that Cecil Phillips has been on our school board for 18 years and came off this past year. So we like to think we taught him well.
Thank you, Mr. Washington. Now we'd like to recognize Dr. Ralph Johnson, who is Director of New Horizons Technical Center.
By now, I know you're tired of hearing comments, so I'll be very brief. Bertrand Russell once said, whether we like it or not, 60 ticks to the second, and we move on, or rather 60 ticks to the minute, we move on into the future, we're going to get 3 hours. In this particular time, we've moved a great deal just by changing thoughts and concepts. The object of the game is to do that. If I could put you on a magic carpet today and take us all around the peninsula, we would see pieces of a mosaic. Some of the pieces of academic tech would be there. Some of the pieces would be blank. What those blank pieces turn out to be will depend upon us, our teachers, and eventually the betterment of our students. And that's our object of academic tech. We fill in the pieces of the mosaic and then bring it together for the rest of the peninsula, the Commonwealth, and eventually the world. It's a great challenge, to say the least. It's an important challenge, and we say it would not be an easy challenge. I can tell you New Horizons 2, 3 years ago, started down that road from the opposite end because we don't have the academic programs on campus. We have been trying to infuse those academics into our vocational programs. It's been an enjoyable phase, but it has not been an easy phase because it is not something that everyone has a concept and a thought about when you say, let's put these together. So the group, we're very proud to be part of the project. We're very proud to learn from York County, and Niels has taught us a lot already. We're also very proud that each of the school divisions has started down the road. We're not starting from ground zero, and that should make you very proud as Peninsula residents. So to all the chair people, I would say we're ready. Let's go. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson. And last, we'd like to recognize Mr. Gene Queen, who is Chairman of the Board of the Virginia Peninsula Chamber of Commerce.
Thank you, Niels. You know, it was just about this time last year, as I was beginning to begin my endeavor in 1991 to be the chairman of the board of the Chamber of Commerce, that I called a town meeting of our membership together to try to get a sense from them of what was important, what things should the chamber be focusing their attention on, and what should we really be looking at as one of our #1 objectives. And it's not surprising, I'm sure, to anybody in this group, the thing that came to the very forefront was education and the preparation of our future workforce. So over the course of this last year, in 1991, our Big Ed Council has spent a great deal of energy and efforts of reinforcing the activities that we do with education. And of course, the program that we have been absolutely adamant about is a program that we are recognizing here today, and that's the Academic Tech Program. We feel like that this program offers education reform, and the Chamber believes this is necessary to our future, not just the short-term future, but we're looking at things that we're going to benefit, we feel, in very long term. For this reason, we are also very honored to be part of this program. And on behalf of the Chamber, Board of Directors, and the membership, I pledge our support and guidance to this program. Together, we can make this a reality for the peninsula and a very strong possibility for the state. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate all of the comments, the support, and we've already met two co-chairs of the executive committee, which has the responsibility for the overall policies, procedures, and the operation of this project, Dr. Billy Canady and Dr. Harvey Perkins. Now, in addition to that, let me have those of you who are in the audience who are on the executive committee, would you please stand? Ralph is on the executive committee. Okay. So we have 23 people now that will be on the executive committee, and we have a small representative here this morning. The others are out busy. The next activity that we're going to have, which will be the closing here. Also, let me do one other thing. If I don't, I'm going to get it done. The staff of the project, the people who are really going to do the work that the executive committee says has to be done, will consist of Mr. Neil Brooks, the associate project director, Mrs. Charlotte Kuczynski, who is the senior vice president of the chamber and manager of the Big Ed Council. She will serve in a lot of capacities in helping us identify exemplary sites, research materials, probably conduct some DACOM workshops for us with some of you here in the audience, and I'm not sure what else, but whatever else we can think of. And then we have Ms. Lisa Smith back in the back, who will be the project secretary, and Doris Wimmer, who retired this past year as the assistant vocational director for the Hampton City Schools. Got so excited about this effort that she decided that she really wasn't ready to retire, so she's going to stay on and help us in working with all the teachers on the writing teams. And we really appreciate all your efforts and all your support. If I can get the superintendents, the president of the college, the dean, you know the sign for the chief, anything else? And also, Charlie just reminded me that we have the press kits put together, and where'd you place it, Charlie?
I have Lisa standing in the hall.
Okay, so Lisa, you have it with you? Okay, Lisa will pass those out. I don't think we have but about 20 of those, so there is enough for all the press and others who might be interested. So if I can get all of you to come and have a seat. Oh, we got CEO and president of the chamber here with us. That's going to sign the chamber. Everyone gave their support in their little talk this morning, and you know, you always like to get things right. So this is an effort to get them to sign on the dotted line so that I can always hold it up and say, you said you were going to do this. Now we've got it right. Well, each of the superintendents, the president of the college, and the Chamber of Commerce signing basically is an agreement stating that they agree to full participation through the implementation of this project, and that they will release staff, teachers, guidance people as needed to support the development of this project, reimburse the school districts for the time that the teachers spend out in the classroom and the other staff members in support of the project directly from project funds. There was some question asked the other day to me by one of the press if we were going to spend the full $450,000 on administration of this project, and how much, if any of it, would ever get to the classroom. This $450,000 will be spent primarily in the areas of research materials, the staff development activities required for in-service training of teachers and guidance counselors and administrators at the community college and the secondary level. It will also be used to purchase materials which have already been developed in other areas of the country so that we won't have to reinvent the wheel in each of these areas as we go downstream. Give them, the teachers something to work with so that, and something to look at as they begin writing this curriculum. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you very much for coming. We appreciate it.
Please,
If you have
enjoy
any
the food.
questions, you can ask any of the staff members and the fact sheets that I gave you, and staff can try to answer any questions.
I'm a part of the community, so let me pick you up out front. See, Bob, it'd be better for me to pick you up because it's not on level ground. But they're better to pick you up.
Right, in the front of the building.
Yeah, no, the front. Well, it doesn't matter, front. I'll just pull up.